My 21M girlfriend 20F was her pet while in the process of cheating on me. I don't know what to do from here. I've been thinking about how to begin this for the last 15 minutes. My mind is a total whirlwind. I can't even begin to organize my scattered ideas. Just so you know the backstory, I've been seeing Sarah, not her actual name, for almost 2 years. John, whom she has known since childhood, is one of her best friends. I never warmed up to him because he was always weird and because he openly flirted with Sarah during our whole relationship and made occasional advances with which I felt uneasy. Fast forward to around 2 weeks ago, when a mutual acquaintance asked Sarah and myself to a get-together party. That night, I had to attend a work class, and under the existing conditions, I had no desire to go. Even though I didn't want her to, Sarah was determined about going, and because I didn't feel like arguing, I conceded. When we ran into John later that day, he brought up the same party and inquired as to whether or not we had received an invitation. "If you're going, I suppose I have to go," he remarked with a strange grin on his face when my girlfriend informed him she was going but I wasn't. Something about his grin and tone of voice really grated on me, and while I didn't want to come out as possessive, the thought of the two of them spending the night together at a party made me uncomfortable. When we returned to our apartment, I informed her that I wasn't happy about her attending the party because of him. She told me I was being dramatic and ended our chat there. "We can all see where this is going. I went to the workshop, while she went to the party." After it had been hours without her returning home or answering my calls, my concern reached a fever pitch. About 2 a.m. a friend of hers contacted me an hour later to tell me she had passed out at the party and been taken to the hospital. After spending 2 days in the hospital and questioning by police after her rape at the hands of John, I brought her home. She revealed to me that one of the bedrooms on the second floor was the location where John drugged and sexually assaulted her. House the party was at is very large. She had become an utter wreck. She stopped eating, stopped wanting to go outdoors, and began having terrifying dreams. I tried my best to ease her mind as best I could. I felt awful for her and it pained me to see her this way, and I apologize if I come off as a monster. I don't hold it against her that John assaulted her, but the fact that I discouraged her from attending the party on several occasions and told her that she makes me uncomfortable just by being with him keeps resonating in my mind. I wish I had done more to safeguard her, and she ought to have paid attention to my concerns. As a side note, we believed it was necessary to seek justice following her attack since it turned out that John is actual trash. Her body showed clear signs of having been raped and there were traces of narcotics in her system as well. We got a restraining order and a police report on the same day. Within a week of the story becoming viral, 2 more women came forward saying they had similar experiences with John, confirming that he is, in effect, a serial rapist. Now fast forward 2 weeks, and my girlfriend is in the same terrible state as she was before. Suddenly she's having panic attacks, she's lost weight like 15 pounds, and she won't even leave the apartment to go to treatment. I had planned on being there for her and taking care of her, but my buddy Sam called me first thing this morning. Long story short, he and many others at the party that night saw Sarah flirting with John from the very beginning. He and the individuals he'd been talking to agreed that she was holding her own, if not initiating, the arguments she had with John. He adds that she didn't seem to be blackout drunk or otherwise incapacitated, and that numerous others witnessed her leading John upstairs while holding his hand. "I feel sick to my stomach right now," he said he was going to tell me after the party, but now that she's been taken to the hospital, he doesn't think it's the proper moment to explain what occurred. Not wanting to make any wild guesses, I chose to directly question her about the events of that evening. When I told her what Sam had told me, the color immediately drained from her face and she admitted that she had been drugged and carried to a bedroom, too. It took her at least 30 minutes to calm down enough to talk once she began to fear. She was crying, but she was still lucid enough to tell me she had cheated on me. She claimed to be tipsy and desperate for excitement since she seldom went out. She acknowledged that she had brought John into the bedroom on her own will. Despite her repeated assurances that everything up to that point had been a deception and that she was really sorry, he had in fact raped her. The final bit, as best as I can tell, happened when they were making out in bed, and he put something into her or whatever and then efforced himself on her. I'm at a loss. She was raped, but everything before to that seemed to me like she was still plotting and attempting to cheat on me. I can't even bear to think about her right now, I'm so upset. As of right now, I am in Sam's place, having abandoned my previous abode. When it comes to the world, I know nothing. Since she can't work since she was laid off by COVID, I've been buying her food and paying the rent in her absence. Within the last several weeks, she has developed an unhealthy emotional dependence on me. No matter how much I hate her, I don't want anything bad to happen to her, therefore I can't bring myself to break up with her. I'm at a loss and need some guidance, please assist me. TL, Doctor, my girlfriend was arped by a buddy at a party I didn't want her to attend. I learned she was dishonest and left out the detail that she was already in the midst of having sexual relations with him that night. I need help since she's emotionally and financially reliant on me. There have been a lot of reactions in a short amount of time, so I'd address some of the concerns in this post. As a preliminary matter, I've learned that, during the last 2 weeks or so, 2 postings dealing with essentially identical issues have been made to this sub. Sorry, but I can't think of a way to back up my claim without also revealing personal information. I'm just searching for some sound advice. My life has been turned upside down, and I don't believe it's the kind of thing somebody should dream up for a karma farm. I didn't add every detail since I'm just trying to get my ideas out, but the general gist of Sarah's tale is consistent with the other 2 women's accounts of John's actions. Before he poisoned them and assaulted them, the other 2 ladies were likewise in an agreeable setting. What they've stated and written suggests that one of the main reasons they waited to come forward was their fear of being disbelieved due to the fact that the relationship began on mutually agreeable terms. I didn't want to be too vague, but Sarah's attack was not something most people would willingly submit to. This might explain why he poisons them beforehand. She suffered and still shows signs of significant bruising and other injuries, including scrapes and gashes. There's no way she wasn't assaulted, in my opinion. While Sarah did love going out on the town, she never did anything more strenuous than smoking pot, and ketamine was discovered in her system. Sarah, in her 3rd year of college, has spent her whole time away from home at an international university. Her extremely devout parents know about what's going on, and although they're worried about her, they aren't exactly being encouraging or making the effort to come visit her. As far as I can tell, she's never had many close friends save John. If I told her she couldn't remain in my flat, I have no idea where she would go. Update: it took me some time to process everything, but I did read as many of the responses as I could, and I'm grateful for everyone's thoughts and words of wisdom, particularly those who've gone through something similar. Perhaps I should begin by setting the record straight on a few points. First of all, I apologize to everyone who saw flaws in my tale since there were flaws. I was lacking a lot of knowledge and was making do with what I had available to me at the time and today. Additionally, I didn't want the piece to be too lengthy, so I omitted details that, in retrospect, would have provided a more complete picture of my circumstances. It is my intention to fill in the blanks. Scroll down a little if you want to go right to the update. So here's the deal with John. He's in Sarah and my social circle and he lives fairly close to us. But he's always made me uncomfortable with his advances and comments about Sarah's body and his insistence that they take a romantic vacation together in Europe this past summer and his habit of poking her breasts when she's wearing tight clothing. The fact that she spends so much time with him makes me uneasy for a number of reasons, not just one. While she never explicitly condoned his actions while I was around, she also never aggressively discouraged them, despite our many discussions on appropriate behavior. She just explained it away as the result of their lengthy familiarity with one another. There were a few minor points that I suppose were important to bring up. For one, we're not in the United States. Second, although COVID is still an issue in our nation as a whole, it's not as much of a problem where we live. And third, everyone at the party Sarah attended was already well known to us. It was not a huge, random party with 100+ people. Instead, it was held in a spacious condo that a friend of ours was renting for the summer. Still moronic, I get it, there were 30 or so, maybe 40, people there, and looking back, I guess you could say that nobody needed to be there. Finally, I'll explain where Sarah and I are financially. My parents are generously covering any remaining tuition costs that scholarships didn't cover, so I just have to worry about covering my basic living expenses such as rent, food, and transportation. However, once Sarah graduated from high school, she was essentially left to fend for herself. According to my revised version, her parents are very devout and authoritarian, therefore they insisted that Sarah attend a local university if they were going to pay for it. She continued to defy him by visiting my school. Her first 2 years in college were spent in a subsidized residency program. After receiving my own apartment a year ago, she moved in with me since neither of us wanted to return to our respective hometowns. Since her whole income goes toward her education costs, I volunteered to continue paying her full rent even if she lives with me. Truth be told, oh boy, I wish I could say things have been clearer in the last week, but honestly, it's been a big cluster of CK and it's just gotten worse. Before returning to speak with Sarah, I spent a few days at Sam's talking to his pals to attempt to piece together what had transpired earlier in the evening. There was a rumor going about that she was the one who lured John upstairs and began flirting with him. I feel obligated to point out right now that when I originally confronted Sarah about the situation, she did not admit to me that she had planned to sleep with him that night. She only acknowledged that she had taken him upstairs. Throughout our talk, she seemed to be suffering a panic attack, making it difficult for me to press for clarification. Despite the obvious grief I felt at the end of our 2-year relationship, I decided to let her stay in my apartment again rent-free until at least the end of October so that she could figure out other living arrangements and support. About 3 days following my stay at Sam's, I gave her a call and told her I'd listen to her version of the tale, but that I needed the whole truth before I'd feel comfortable returning home. When we finally had a chance to sit down, I finally got the chance to question her about what had transpired that night. She began weeping immediately, but she wasn't very alarmed, and she told me she needed to tell me something about herself. Sarah has always been more of a party animal than I am, but I've gone with her around once a month or so nonetheless since I like spending time with her. On the other hand, she often attended parties and other social gatherings with her female friends. My brother has a history of addiction, and I've seen firsthand what it can do to a person and the people around them, so I informed her early on in our relationship that I wasn't comfortable being with someone who was engaged with serious drug usage. She assured me it was alright since she enjoys the odd drink and joint. Apparently, she has been consuming harsher drugs at parties without me there for the last year, and her so-called girls' evenings often only include her and a few others from our social circle. John also accounted for going to a friend's place to do mushrooms. I was taken aback and didn't know what to make of the situation, so I simply attempted to probe her for additional details about the evening she was attacked and whether or not she had planned to cheat on me. She admits to me that she led John upstairs, but that she wasn't looking to sleep with him but rather to get some drugs. When the results came back from the hospital, they found only fentanyl and alcohol in her bloodstream, despite his assurances that it was cocaine. She informed me that he began making sexual advances on her right away, and that she fought him off at first, but became too intoxicated to continue. After I had consoled her for a time, I inquired as to the nature of her connection with John and whether or not the two had had any activities prior to that fateful evening. She did say that they had made out previously, around Christmas time last year, but that it had never progressed beyond that. She begged me to forgive her, telling me she can't go on without me. It was merely a phase she was going through as a result of her upbringing, they said. To be quite honest, I still don't know what to believe. I told her I needed some space to think and left again since I couldn't handle any more stress. It was really kind of Sam to let me stay at his apartment once again. A few of my friends who she claimed to be using drugs with corroborated it when I asked them. I was furious with them for keeping it a secret from me, but they said she virtually forced them to. So much of my relationship seems to have been a fabrication. She wasn't who I believed she was, and she lied consistently for a long time. By this point, I've pretty well made up my decision, so I give her a call and tell her that we're done, but that she may continue staying at my place until the end of October so long as she sees a therapist. The phone ended with her in tears, but I had already decided to remain with Sam for a bit, so I just stated as much and hung up. Wish that was the end of it, but a day later I started receiving hate calls and texts from individuals I knew and didn't know. To my dismay, I discovered that she had written on many social media platforms that I had dumped her after she told me she had been raped and had nowhere to go during this era of chronic opportunistic violent crime. In addition, she claimed that I had prevented her from seeing a therapist following the attack by victim blaming her and emotionally assaulting her. I have no idea what to do or say. I am confused, angry, and devastated. That night, I gave her another call to tell her she had 2 weeks to vacate the premises or I would stop talking to her. The last week has been spent on damage management as I've tried to make amends with friends and family through phone and social media. My life essentially went apart. I was doxxed, had death threats, and was shunned by coworkers, though thankfully my employer was on my side. Thankfully, Sam was really kind and accommodating throughout it all and let me sleep at his apartment till Sarah left. Though she'll be gone by this coming Friday, I have no desire to return to her old digs. Friends had to be eliminated, and my once solid reputation is now in shambles. If I ever knew how to love again, I certainly can't now that I've lost the first and only person who ever meant anything to me. I kind of wish I could just end it all, but I know I need to see a counselor. I've become numb to the world around me. I have no idea whether I'm right or wrong about this. I apologize if I've gone on too long. I realize this is a pretty lengthy post, but I wanted to say how much I appreciated everyone's kind words and encouragement in the previous one. What I really want to say is that my girlfriend lied to me about the night she was raped. My life fell apart because she cheated on me with the buddy who ended up beating her, used heavy drugs behind my back for months, and then lied on social media about how I had been emotionally abusing her despite my best efforts to support her. After our second conversation, I learned via a reader's remark that she was still lying to me. She lied about the drugs she was taking and I didn't even catch on to it. All the information I knew about the medicines she was taking came from Sarah. The hospital didn't share that information with me and I don't know anything about them anyhow. At this point, I can't even say whether or not she was drugged against her will. This is not the person I thought she was, and now I question everything. Forget that. She's no longer a part of my life.